Alright, so my name is Austin Kalinowski, and today I will be refuting Desmond's claim, the guy who left the room, that genetically modified organisms, GMOs for short, are beneficial to the population. I'm going to preface this by saying that I will refer to GMOs from now on as GMOs because it's an inconvenient mouthful to say genetically modified organisms. Okay, so I'm sure many of you have been to your local grocery store, Whole Foods, Clark's, Sprouts, any organic store, and you'll see on just about every box on the shelf they proudly advertise GMO free, because they just don't like it. And whilst I agree that some GMOs are beneficial, given that they are relatively new, we do not truly know their impact on the world. Desmond's first claim was that GMOs are safe for consumption. Again, while this may be true for some GMOs, given that it's such a broad term, being genetically modified means that any crop or plant that is not 100% natural is considered a GMO. Why does this lead to problems? Because some crops are genetically modified to withstand herbicides or different pesticides. So while what they're injected with or how they're modified may be safe for consumption, the stuff that they coat them on or coat them with, pesticides, herbicides, may not be. Following up on the same broad term, organizations such as the American Academy of Environmental Medicine advocate for GMO-based or for non-GMO-based diets, citing studies that show that some pigs, after consuming some GMOs, had stomach ulcers or it developed weird growths and cancers, versus their non-GMO counterparts that ate the same foods, just not modified at the same time. So, as for the refutal on this, Desmond's issue with this one is that it's a reasoning problem where we do not have a discernible difference between a good GMO and a bad GMO, again, because it's such a broad term. This is the only further, a problem because the FDA does not require companies to label their things with whatever GMO they may contain. So again, that's probably why some companies like to advertise non-GMOs, because if they did put them in there, they don't have to tell you which ones they did. Desmond's second claim is that biotech crops are less susceptible to extinction. This ties back to what I said before, to where if they make it less susceptible to herbicides so that they can coat it and stuff, it may be safe to eat, but the stuff that they're putting on it may not be. He had said something about, had a really weird name, it was the banana flavoring. I thought I'm just going to dismiss that point completely, only because it was like a what if hypothetical situation where if we had coated this thing or if we had genetically modified it, it would still be around. And given that it was a 50-year-old statement, it was the gross Michael strain, it's irrelevant because 50 years ago we thought that aspartame was safe to consume. Desmond's last claim is that biotechs help with the global food crisis. This is one claim that I strongly agree with and why we should continue pursuing GMOs. However, until we have longitudinal studies that can show which ones are good and which ones are bad, and then come up with a system to actually label which ones are good and which ones are bad, then we shouldn't produce these on a massive scale just yet. Alright, thank you.
That was supposed to be with me, right? Is that with the other thing? Or?
Yeah.
All right, well, you have an explanation of what GMOs are, and that there's an argument here that says that maybe there's some that are good, some that are bad, and we can't really detect which is which. That's an interesting point. I'm not exactly sure that you convince me that any of them are particularly bad. In fact, you repeat twice that there's not necessarily anything wrong with the genetically modified foods themselves. It's the stuff that the genetically modified foods allow to be put on them that is potentially problematic. So if it's not the GMO and it's rather the way the food's processed, why is this a reason that we should think that there's anything wrong with GMOs? You've got a two-step process that's going there. I'm not saying that there isn't a causality argument, but I do think that you have to make the argument a little bit more distinct. And I think that it's problematic not to have some response to the GMO stuff. If all of those companies that you talked about think that GMO-free is a good thing, there's got to be a reason for it other than just that it might also be dusted with some herbicide or pesticide, because they could just wash that off and save themselves a bucket load of time and energy otherwise. There's information about the FDA not requiring labels on this stuff that I know that it's generally true, but is you then suggest that then people can put whatever they want in since they're not required to label it, but they have to be accurate in what labels they do put on. So I'm not exactly sure that you're making an appropriate inference with that point. You kind of dismiss his example about how biotechnology might have been able to save a particular crop. And it is an old example, but there's no reason to believe that similar kinds of problems couldn't come up in the future. And the idea of having this technology available is useful. You just kind of dismiss it because the example's old, but the example's old because of a particular product that disappeared. If the advocate had no current examples, I think that would be a little bit more useful as an argument rather than just that it's 50 years old. I didn't understand the aspartame reference at all. That made no sense. And in fact, if it's not safe to consume, the FDA is doing us a great disservice by allowing us to continue to put it in our food. All right, so I think that I do like the idea that says, look, we don't have enough information that's going on right now, and we can't say one way or the other on this issue, and there maybe is a problem. I think some of it needs to be more specific to the advocate's points on this issue. All right, thank you.